Hope you're joining in with good energy because you're going to do a lot of stuff today. My presentations are usually not very, quite an irony to say, but not very presentation heavy. So we're going to do a lot of interesting stuff. I just share the link of the repo as well with all of you. So where the code lives and everything. I would love for you to start the repo, fork the repo, and git clone if you want to, so that you can sort of go through and look into different things. The one that we focus on today is retail AI location strategy with Google ADK. This is again a multi-agent system that we are going to learn how to build and what are the different features that it has, and so on and so forth. But before we go, couple of things from a session management point of view, so that you know when to ask questions and things like that. So the first is, please make sure that you are taking note of all the links that I am sharing, so that it's easy for you to keep track of it. And Siddhi, if you can also do it and keep sharing it if people are joining late, so that they have access to the links that I'm sharing. The second part of the thing is that you feel free to sort of ask questions. I'm usually not, um, I don't want you to sort of wait for 45 minutes to ask your specific question on things that we are discussing. However, if I feel like the question might require a bit more time to answer, I would sort of put it towards the end of the session. So we'll do a 45 minutes walkthrough and things that we want to cover. And then towards the end, 15 to 10 minutes, given how much time I take or not take, we're going to cover those bigger questions towards the end. So if you have something very quick, if you have something where you want to sort of ask a quick question or maybe comment, I'm always happy to have comments, feedbacks, while we are going through things, right? Like you may see something and you're like, oh, here's a thing that I would want to add to it. The other thing is, so there are two ways you can do this. One is you can sort of put it, you can put the questions on the chat. I have the visibility, I can read that. The other is you can raise your hand. And Siddhi, do they have option to speak, or they don't have option to speak?
Yeah, it's all us. We have this access to let them speak. So let me know whom
Okay.
you would love me to speak. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if there's something, again, if you want to speak, and if something is you cannot sort of type, then feel free to let us know, raise your hand or let us know on the chat, and we'll give you that opportunity as well. But let's keep the session flowing. Let's make sure that you contribute to the session. So it's not just me speaking, telling things, but feel free to contribute, have discussions over the chat. If you have points, if you have something that you want to share, any links or anything that you have done, feel free to sort of do that during the session. I will, again, I'm going to miss certain things in between your questions, your things. If I do so, make sure that you bring that towards the end of the session, not during the session, so that, we cover the thing that you want to do. And then by the end of it, you have everything properly answered. I have shared my LinkedIn. Maybe Siddhi can share it one more time. If you have, generally, please be connected with me. If you have any questions or feedback from this session and you want to reach out to me later, feel free to do that on LinkedIn. I'm usually, I don't respond in an instant, so you might see my response a bit late. And that's it. That's all we had to know. The other thing I want to quickly check with everyone who is here is, how many of you have worked on Google ADK? I hope you can all. Do you have access to the emojis on your Google chat? You
Yes,
do.
they
Okay, perfect. Okay. So just by the show of hand, how many of you have done Google ADK? I see a lot of you have. This is good. Some of you have not, which is absolutely fine. Awesome. Awesome. By any chance, anybody has seen this particular sample before, either on social media or for whatever reason you came here on my repo? Good, good. That's good. I was hoping at least there's one who would have seen, but it's fine. So I've shared the link of this. Again, like I said, feel free to star the repo so that you keep getting the updates. So let's start with the fact that, okay, first thing is, this is not a ADK intro to ADK session. So For those of you who have done ADK, this will be good, amazing. You'll get to see a lot of things. For those of you who have never done ADK, I will sort of try to bring in that perspective as well. But I would say that, you should definitely go and start exploring ADK. ADK essentially means Google Development Kit. There is a whole sort of documentation that you have, and I'm going to share the link for that as well. And this is for people who have not yet started their journey with ADK. So feel free to sort of start your journey and things like that. So let's start with the very first thing, which is what exactly is retail AI location, right? So many a times, and this is something which is, one of those examples where you may or may not do this on your day-to-day life, but this sort of the capability and the things that we're trying to achieve is something where you should be able to learn how to build multi-agent systems, right? So for example, let me actually come to this particular part where we exactly see what the overall structure of what we're going to do, right? So imagine that you are a researcher, especially a location researcher, or let's say location specialist. And one of the things that you always have to do for your customers or your client or people that you're working with is the fact that if they want to open a certain restaurant business or any commercial enterprise for that matter in a given location, your job is to essentially do a research and tell that person whether that's a good location for that particular business or not. So for example, if you see the one that I'm showing you here, which is a user says that, hey, I want to open a coffee shop in Bangalore. And you can be, of course, more specific. You don't just have to say the whole city, because as some of you who know what Bangalore is, you would know that it's not a small place, and there's like huge centers in those specific places. So you can be more specific as well. You can say, hey, I want to open a coffee shop in Whitefield in Bangalore. Same thing, I want to open a coffee shop in Castro Street in Mountain View, for example. So you can be very specific in those areas, but the essence is that you're trying to do analysis based on certain factors. Now, what are those certain factors? So the way this sort of goes is, and again, like I said, this is one of the example of a use case. It doesn't mean that it has to be solved this way, right? So do not get confused, or do not sort of get into the aspect that oh, this is not the right way to solve this problem. Our only goal here is to see that, assuming that this is the right way, again, big assumption, how would we architect a solution like that, right? You can put components here and there, you can add more components, delete more components, all of that is fine. So what we typically want to do is we want to go forward, take the query that the user gives. So let's say the user says, I want to open a coffee shop in Bangalore. We should be able to do certain kinds of basic market research, right? So market research essentially says that, okay, if user has already told us that it's a coffee shop and it's a specific place across the world, can I do a quick Google search and get all the relevant information about both the aspects? So aspect of, what are the coffee shop trends, what are the specific location trends, and all of those things. And what is the best way to do that? You use something like Google search, because, and this is a standard term that we use, which is grounding with search, right? So this is a very Google specific term, which is, we know that LLMs are bad at getting recent information, right? If you were to ask what is the date for today to any LLM, not just Gemini, not just ChatGPT, but any LLM, they'll be only able to tell you as per whatever their training date is. But they all become very powerful the moment you connect them with the internet, or with something like Google search, something like Brave search, something like any kind of a search engine where they have access to all these things. That's the moment it suddenly becomes more powerful, because it has now more access to data or information which is outside of its training data. And that's what the second part of the flow, what we're trying to do here, right? Which is, you take the request of the user, you understand the intent of what the user is trying to ask, which is, oh, user is asking about coffee shop in a specific location. And then you basically sort of use Google search as a grounding, and you get the market research, a general research around it. The next step from there is a Maps API, which is essentially, now that you know the location, so because user has already provided you with the location, You also then again use another tooling. So just like you used Google search as a tool to do the market research, the next tool that you're going to do is Maps API. So because you know the location, you will ask Google Maps API saying, hey, here's the location. Can you give me all the information of all the different kinds of coffee shops that are there? All the commercial establishment which are there. And this is very simple if you think about it, right? We all do that. When we want to go, let's say, have a good lunch or a dinner, what we do, we always go to Google Maps and we say, hey, best ramen around me, right? And then it sort of searches and it gives you all the ratings and everything, and you essentially sort of select which one is better for you. So we are essentially doing exactly the same thing. We're saying, hey, I know I'm looking for coffee shop. I know I'm also looking for something like a specific part of a city. Now I'm going to go to Google Maps and I'm going to say, hey, give me all the location related coffee shops around so that I can sort of do a more comprehensive analysis of it. Then the third thing that we do, and I'm going to show you how it sort of works and what is the backend and how does the output and everything work. I just want to sort of give you a high level view of the overall pipeline so that you're clear as to how the flow works, right? Some of you were asking that, hey, where is the presentation? Can you share the presentation? There is no presentation. It's basically the image. I've shared the actual repository. All the images are there. So I'm just showing that part. And I've shared the link as well on the chat. Okay, so code execution, right? So the next is, again, it's a very common reasoning framework, if you think about it. So think like this. You did the market research using Google search as a tool. You also did location mapping research, which is based on Google Maps API data and all the ratings and all the coffee shops and all the commercial things around you. You again got that data. The next step is again a reasoning where you're saying, hey, I have all of this research that I just did. Can I find out if there are any gaps which are associated with this, right? Again, it's as an analyst or as a researcher, that's always your next step, which is once you have all the basic research and the foundational research, you would want to figure out the gaps. You would want to sort of measure certain things, saying, okay, I have 10, and I'll give you one example of that. Let's say you have 10 different coffee shops. Maybe you want to calculate the density of coffee shops in a given area. You want to calculate the average ratings of the coffee shops which are around you. Because think like this, what does it tell you? If your density is low, it tells you that, oh, maybe opening a coffee shop in this specific location might actually be a good idea. Or if the average rating is sort of slightly low, again, it gives you an indication that maybe you have an option to, um, you have an option to actually open a new coffee shop. In either case, if those are higher or the density is higher, maybe that's an indication to tell you that maybe this is not the right location for you to open a coffee shop, right? So this is where code execution comes in handy, because another very big limitations of LLMs generally, again, not specific to Gemini or ChatGPT, is that they are not good at doing these calculations slash mathematical analysis, right? So what we do in the third step is that we take the data from the first two parts of the workflow, which is the Google search and the Maps API, and then we ask it to use Python as a tool to do these calculations of the gaps, right? And you do specifically define those. So it's not like it's sort of doing this on its own. You define a certain formula, you define a certain measurement and say, hey, I'm going to give you a data. Based on that data, can you please run these codes so that I don't get a hallucinated answer of analysis, right? So that's where the code execution of gap analysis comes. Now you have done three parts, right? So you've done market research with Google search, you've done competitor mapping with Maps API, and you've also done gap analysis with code execution. What's the next thing? Next thing is again strategic advisor. So now that you have all of this data, you also have measurements associated. Now we will again use an LLM to say, hey, imagine you have all of this data. Imagine you are an advisor who has been given this data and you have been asked to prepare a reasoning or let's say a strategy or advisory for this person who has this query. Can you sort of build that? And that's exactly what the next part does, which is it takes all of that data and creates a extended reasoning and the strategy and the advisory for the question that you asked based on everything that it did in the last three parts. Now, it is at this point the pipeline sort of kind of finishes, because beyond this, it's just the output formatting that happens, right? So this is where the final answer essentially comes, where it tells you that, oh, this is the right location, this is where you should open the shop, or maybe this is not the right location, or these are the top 5 places where you should open it or not open it. Either way, whatever your main concern is. What happens after this, which is in the red that you see, is essentially taking that output and presenting that in a beautiful different kinds of formatting. So this is separate to your actual reasoning or your research. So last part is just the delivery part. So for the on that you have two different things. In fact, actually four different things. So one of them is HTML report. So I'll show you that it basically creates a very beautiful report like a presentation, which is just another way of saying that it uses LLMs to generate a HTML code, and then it gives you that report, which you can just download. The other is it also sort of creates a infographic. This is a classic example of how a pipeline can generate a Nano Banana Pro visualization, which you can then use it as a reference. And then the last part, which you don't see here, but and I forgot to update this, but you also get a audio overview of it, which is a very classic thing that you see in Notebook LLM, right? So Notebook LM also gives you audio overview, so we sort of add that layer as well. So again, just wanted to give you a high level view of what is the pipeline that we're going to talk about. All these individual parts that you're seeing, think of them as agents. So each agent is responsible for a certain things, and we are connecting all of them together to come to from, let's say, at the top, which is a user giving us a query, and then you go step by step with each of these agents, and then finally generating a report, generating a visualization, and generating an audio overview. So that's the complete pipeline that we're going to see, and we're going to see a bunch of different sort of elements around it. I'll show you the output. I'll show you how each and every agent is working, what's happening in the back, what's happening in the front, how is the output coming, and so on and so forth. Before I go there, now let me take a quick pause and let me see if you guys have any questions. Again, prefer to put your question first on chat. If the question is something you cannot put on chat, please raise your hand, and then I'll quickly ask that. So again, anybody, any questions, any comments, any feedback, go ahead, put your stuff on the chat. I see Mo has his hand raised. Do you want to go ahead and ask a question, Mo? Craig's is saying, FII, helpful for me would be putting this ADK in the context of open code, anti-gravity, Gemini, Conductor, Jupyter, Collab. Perfect. And Craig, this is what I was saying. So this is one of those things which I'll 100% talk to you maybe beyond the session, right? Because this is a very interesting question, and we'll talk in detail about it. Is that okay with you if you cover this towards the end? Because there's a lot that I can say around it. So this is for this specific use case or to be enhanced? Yes, so this is just for this specific use case that we are discussing. Like I said, you feel free to enhance it. You feel free to sort of do it in another way. Like I said, the goal here is to understand how do you take a use case, translate that into different components, which are then called as agents, and then how do you make them work together? How much effort is it to add other third-party data sources? Example, average income, usage, GIS database. That's a good question. Effort is not much. As long as you have access, you should be able to integrate that with your tools. ADK has a lot of integrations already available. And especially, for example, if you have MCP, which gives you GIS data, or let's say any survey data or any kind of census data, you can very easily integrate that. And I'll show you when we'll actually go through that. It's not that of a bigger deal. With this Google ADK framework, are you using proprietary LLM models or open source model behind it supplying API keys? Again, very good question, Andy. So this is 100% using Gemini end-to-end across all different parts of it. But ADK does support open models as well. So, you can use all your open source models wherever they are hosted. and you can sort of just use them. But this particular example only uses Gemini, and you can use both Vertex AI Gemini as well as the Google AI Gemini. So irrespective which you have access to. Okay, perfect. So now let's go to our, and before I go here, I want to also quickly show you that how can you actually do the local installation. So there are already steps for you to follow. So again, I've shared this link. So when you go, it'll tell you exactly how to set this up at your end, what are the different keys that you would have to do. And all you have to do is this particular line, once you have done your .env and all the setup, and then you should be able to see exactly what I am going to show you right now, which is ADK Web. So again, for those of you who know, ADK comes with ADK Web, which is a chat interface where you can actually talk to your agents. For those of you who don't know, what you get is something like this, right? So what I'm showing you right now is an agent. You can see that it's running on my local system. I don't know if you see this, but this is essentially running on my local host. The whole agent is. And with the setup instructions, you can do the same thing. So let's start with the first one, which is the same question that I was talking about. So the question here is, I want to open a coffee shop in Indiranagar Bank. Now, one of the things, again, from a ADK web perspective, is that there are two parts of ADK web. So on the right, you have a chat interface where you actually talk to your agent. On the left, you have almost like a observability tracing platform. So everything that happens, you can actually check all the logs and tracings and session details, what's happening in the back on the left-hand side, which is on this part of it, right? So for example, when I put a question like this, which is I want a coffee shop in Indiranagar, I can actually click on a specific agent, which you see as green here, and it actually tells you that this is a retail location. You can see what this is doing. You can also see the overall pipeline, how each and every agent is connected, what it is connected with. Oops, sorry. What did I do? Okay. You can also see that what is the model it is using. So currently I'm using Gemini 2.5 Pro, and I'm not using Gemini 3 because it's not out of public preview. You can see what is the text it has received. It is doing what kind of function calls and all the other sort of background details that will be required for you to do logging and sort of seeing that, right? So when you first do, and again, always go back to this diagram. Let me actually put this here. So the first thing that we wanted to see is the parsing of the request, right? So if you see, when we actually put a query, the very first thing that happens is it goes to the intake agent, right? So the intake agent essentially takes a query, and what it does is it tells you what it has understood. So if you see on the left, um, you can see that it has figured out these two things, right? So it has figured out, let me also point this out. So if you see here, you can see Indiranagar in Bangalore is the location that it picked out, and the business type is coffee shop. So this is good. This is the kind of agent which is the intent agent. So the idea here is that whatever you do, it will always pick up these two things, target location and business type. If you do not provide it, it'll throw error. It'll say, hey, you have not provided me with the actual location. Can you please do that? So you can go ahead. And it also gives you a confirmation because, again, the agent has a mind of its own because of the LLM that is associated with this. So it sort of also summarizes that for you, which is where it says, great, we have confirmed the business type is coffee shop and the target location is Indiranagar, Bangalore. Now, what happens beyond this is that now that it has understood this part, it will say, okay, what I'm going to next do is I'm going to initiate a comprehensive location strategy analysis, which will involve the market research, competitor mapping, gap analysis, and all. So this is basically saying, okay, I have the information that I need. I'm going to start by doing the thing. So the next thing, like I said, was market research, which is using the Google search. So the thing that happens here is it basically transfers to the agent. So it now knows that I need to go and ask the other agent to start the marketing research. What you see here is a final output, but before we go there, I'm going to again show you the logs just to show you what exactly happens in the back. So this particular agent, because it has access to Google search as a tool, takes a query and then it has a predefined function. So how do I know this? So if I actually go back to the code and if I go to app, and I go to the sub agents, you will see all the agents that I'm showing you there, right? So let me go to the competitor mapping. And this is where you will start seeing that the actual prompt that was there based on what you're seeing is this. So it knows the current date. So it knows that I have to give it latest information. It knows the target location, which is what we are passing from the previous agent. And then it has all these instructions. So it says that, hey, please search for competitors, call the search place function with queries this, and then it goes through all those things step by step. So this is what you're seeing here, that it has done, um, um, uh, it has to do all of these different research, and based on that, it has to return back those to you. So again, if you go back to sub agents, you will see bunch of, oh, sorry, my bad. Actually, I was supposed to show you market research, not the competitor mapping that happens later. So this is the research that it will carry on based on the prompt that it has done. So Craig has asked, so these agent findings go into .md or .json file that you can edit. The finding of the agent goes into the session state. These session states are accessible across all the agents. So it's almost like memory. Like think of that as a local memory. So whatever this instruction and the prompt does, it saves that into a state. That state is then accessible to all the agents as long as you access them. So you can see it's a very simple prompt. And one of the very important things of this is that it has a tool associated with this, right? So this is where you will see that this particular agent, which is a market research agent, has a tool called Google Search. And then it runs this specific prompt where we have asked it to do the analysis for us. So that's what happened. The transfer agent basically transferred everything to a market research agent. So if you see, it actually tells you that this is a market research agent. Now, if you roughly see the output of it, you can see how beautifully it has done that, right? So it has given you a date that this is 12th February 2026, which is today. So I ran this today. And it gives you like a report. It says report provides this and all of that. So it starts with the demographic. It tells you what's the population and density, what's the income and purchasing power. Now, again, how does it know to get this? You can get this because that's exactly what we are asking it to do in the prompt. So we have asked it to specifically do all of that. So there's nothing fancy in that sense. The only thing is that all of this is grounded with the Google search data. You can see that the industry presence is being figured out, commercial viability is figured out, and so on and so forth. And towards the end, because we have asked it to also create a verdict, so that we at least have one set of understanding that, okay, this is what this is what we need. So is Indiranagar a strong market for coffee shop? It basically gives you a verdict based on the analysis it just carried out. So there's a reasoning component also associated with the Google search, but it also gives you a underlining sort of caveat that the market is also saturated and success is not guaranteed by simply having a presence. And then it goes into sort of recommendation as what is that you should do in order to do that. One of the great things of Google search as a tool is that when you actually use it, it tells you what is the query it actually ran on Google search. So if you see it actually, if I click on this, you will see exactly the same research happening on Google. So then you know for the fact that, oh, so it's not just randomly doing anything, you actually get to see this. In fact, on the left-hand side, oftentimes people say that, you know what, this is all good, but what if I want actual citations? And that's what happens on the left-hand side. Each chunk that you receive also gets a URL from where it is actually citing that information. So on the left, you will notice that it has Wikipedia, Hindustan Times, Quora.com, Outlook Money, and this weird looking thing that you see, if I actually paste it, just to show you, while it says Vertex AI search, but if you print it, you will see that you actually see a right link that is there. And this is not too old. This is 23rd November 2025, right? So it's actually going through these different articles, and from there it is doing this research, right? So again, if you go on the left, you will see huge amount of links and things where it is sort of doing this. The other thing which is very important is it also tells you exactly which text. So it tells you the start index and the end index of those specific paths. So you can actually say that, hey, if it is saying something like this, where it is including a number or anything, you can actually go and check the citation of it. So you have more confidence whether is it a hallucination which I'm seeing, or is it actually a thing where something is written on the internet. Now, of course, something that is written on the internet can also be false. So we don't know that, but at least you get that kind of a thing. So that's the second part of the pipelines, right? So you've done the market research, Google search helped you, it gave you citation, it gives you links, it gives you pretty much everything so that you can be more confident. Let me take a quick pause. I see some of the questions, so I'm going to just quickly answer them and then okay. Andy, I'm going to come back to your question towards the end. Let's have a discussion. So these agent findings going to this I've addressed. Mukesh is on a basic auto plan of 30 minutes. Okay, this I don't care. Ankit is asking, are all the state stores in the memory? If I come back and try to ask more question, can it have context on my previous? Great question. So Ankit has asked a very interesting question. So Ankit, again, if you read more about ADK, you'll get the answer eventually. But just to quickly answer you, there are two kinds of storage, so to say, or states, so to say, in ADK. One is a local. It's almost like how you use Google Colab, that when you actually connect to a session, the RAM and the memories are available to you. The moment you disconnect, which is to say, in case of this, if the local host is disconnected and you closed it, your memory states and everything is gone. So you do have access. So if you are in the same session and if you continue to talk to it, as long as your local host is running, you will be able to access all the conversation. But the moment you close it, you'll not be able to do that. That's where you go to persisted storage or persisted memory in ADK, where you can actually connect to Vertex, connect to Postgres, connect to any database for that matter. And then all your states essentially go there. And then you can sort of, irrespective whether the server is running or not, have access to all the states in memory. Chad, does the Google ADK have Python decorators like LangGraph tool decorator? Yes. So Chad, if you actually go to, we don't have a lot. We don't have a concept of decorators as much as LangGraph has, but we do especially has for example, for plugins and all we do have. So again, please check the documentation and you will be able to see that. I was going to ask the same thing, that is markdown files in the ADK with CrewAI. The agents are YAML driven. There's a way to define your agents through YAML as well in ADK. Andy, do remind me again towards the end of the session, and I'll share the link with you of how to do that. Okay, let's move to the next one. So again, so the next step is for us to use API for maps and see how we can get it much better. So we do a competitor analysis here, right? So again, if you notice, once it has done this particular aspect, which is market research, it completely understands that I now have to switch to the next step. It says I will now proceed with the competitor mapping exercise. And for that, I have to call a specific tool. So what you see here is calling of a tool. So this particular competitor mapping is calling a tool called search places. Again, if I show you the rating of, the logs of it, you will start noticing that this looks like, a JSON return of what Google Maps API returns. So this is what is happening here, right? Because we have passed it a specific place, which is Indiranagar, Bangalore. It has figured out all the key places around that area. It has given us latitude and longitude. It has given us rating. It has given us a very comprehensive data of what goes around, in the Nagar area. So it says that, oh, excellent, I have the first set of results. To ensure comprehensive analysis, I will retrieve the next page of results. So again, if you've worked with Google Maps API, you know that there's a lot of pagination that occurs. So it's not like you will be able to get everything. So you get 10 records at the first hit. You get so you have to keep on increasing the page to get more and more records. So I have fixed it to 2 pages. That's why you see that it actually retrieves the next pages of result. But within that, so again, there are two elements to it. So one is the next agent has access to the tool, which is the tooling of Google Maps. And in fact, if I go back and quickly show you, so let's go to the competitor mapping. And if I come down, you will start seeing that competitor mapping agent has a tool called as search places. Now, what is this search places? If I again go back to app folder, and I go to tools, you will see a places search .py. So this is your typical Python function, right? So a typical Python function which has access to Google Maps API, which is where you see here. And it basically goes through each and every page. So this is a standard API where I'm having access. So somebody was asking that, can I use some other API? Yes, you can. So just like this, I have written a tool which can access this. That's what I'm doing. So one of the component was tools. The other component is essentially model. So what model is doing here is it is taking the output of the tool, which is on the left, what you're seeing here through the Google Maps, and then it's adding its reasoning over it based on the prompt that we have given, right? So if I go back for a moment and I go back to my sub agents and I go to competitor mapping, you will see the prompt where we are asking it to do all of those things. I'm saying, hey, first get all the competitors, second, analyze. So for each competitor found, note the name, location, rating, business status, and then I've given it complete step, right? So step 4 is this, step 4 is strategic assessment, and the final is the output format. And that's exactly what you see here. So first thing it does is it tells you, again, it tells you the date, and then it tells you the list of competitors. So because it understood that you were asking for coffee, it understood all the coffee places along with business name, address, the rating it has on Google Maps, and number of reviews it has. And that's important. And if you see, again, we are not doing anything fancy. We're doing very subtle, basic things. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to make sure that every time we are taking a decision, it's always grounded in the raw data which we trust. So we trust that Google Maps rating and the number of reviews and the name and everything is good. So you get the address, you get the rating. So this gives you a good competitive mapping, right? Remember, I said if you were to do this analysis and find out that on an average, the ratings of coffee shops are not beyond 4.4 or 4.3, it gives you an indication that, okay, maybe I should open a coffee shop where I should come up with a way to create something greater than 4.5. Now, of course, that's a big if, but at least you get a certain kind of insight into this. The other thing it does is it also sort of does a zone by zone breakdown of competition. So it sort of again does a clustering among the location because we've asked it to do that, and it has the location data. It tells you that the specific clusters of location inside Indranagar, and it tells you what is the cluster doing and what's the main competitors in those cluster. And zones are important because zones tell you that what is the best proximity of where should you place yourself in a given location. And then, like I said, it does the pattern analysis, location type, quality segmentation. So it also sort of goes and tells you that, okay, maybe the premium tier, which is 4.5 plus rating, what is the insight that I can gather from it? So if you just see one of the insights, you will see that it says that these top rated cafes are not all on the main road, suggesting that the exceptional quality and a unique experience can draw customers even to less central location. This is very interesting if you think about it, right? And we wouldn't have gotten to this insight if we didn't ground it to both Google search as well as the location API that we gave, right? Because it has all of those data, it is able to create these insights. And that's the whole point that we are trying to understand, right? How LLMs and agents become so powerful the moment you connect them with the right data and with the right architecture. Similarly, if you see the mid-market, it says this indicates a highly competitive mid-market. A new entrant in this segment would need a strong, unique selling proposition to stand out. So it's also giving you those insights and things like that, right? Now, it also sort of covers undeserved opportunities, which is niche concepts in residential pockets. It's sort of, again, based on the commercial slash residential analysis. It says that, hey, there's a good chance that you can actually open up your stuff in these areas. Now, once that is done, again, if you go back to our diagram, you will see that we have done the maps. Now we are going to do the analysis with the code. Now, what is that code? Let's go back to our sub-agents and let's go to gap analysis. And if you open the agent.py, you will start seeing that what exactly are we asking it to do, right? So we are again defining them step by step. We are saying, hey, step one, please pass the competitor data. parse all the names, location, rating, zone area classifications. Step two, we are saying, please also extract from the first Google research the population estimate, income levels, and all of those. Then we are asking it to calculate the zone metric. So again, try to understand that we are not now for the third time, we are leveraging the previous two times research, and we are giving it instructions so that it can then write a Python code that can do all of these calculations so that there's no hallucination on that, right? So we say, okay, the step three is where the calculation starts. So we say calculate the zone metrics. For each identified zone, compute competitor count, competitor density. This is what we discussed at the start. And then I've given it some metrics. Now, these metrics are very simple. These metrics are something that you can have your own metric. For example, I'm asking it to calculate demand signal based on population, income, and infrastructure. And I've kept a lot of figuring out of the actual formula to the LLM, which is there. So if I come down, you will see that I still have the code execution model, which is Gemini, and I'm passing it a code executor in this, right? So once I give all of this, and if you see the code guidelines, you will see that I've asked it to use pandas because it's going to use Python. So I've asked it to use all of those things in this case. So now if I come here, and I go to the third one, you will start seeing something very weird, right? You'll start seeing these codes coming up. So this is just printing the code, but there's a sandbox where the code has actually run. And you can see that it's weird. Let me actually see if it gives a better looking output somewhere. So you can see that you can't see anything. What's happening here is just printing the output, just printing the code first, and then second part, it will print the outcome. So this is the outcome of the code it has written based on the data it has taken. And this is what we needed, right? This is all the metric that we wanted to capture. And then because there's an LLM, it took that output, which the code executor produced, and then it created the strategic recommendation. So now it is a much better report that has come out, right? So it says overall market condition is this, and it says that this is highly saturated and competitive market across all zone. And now you will start seeing the rankings, right? This is very interesting because what you have done so far is you have now also included a quantification of all the research and the analysis, right? So it says that now I've done the analysis and it looks like the zone 3, which is this particular part, has the highest ranking score based on what you asked it. And it also gives you reasoning because it knows how it has been calculating that, right? So wins due to combination of lowest market saturation and lowest chain dominance. So again, there are so many coffee chains, right? Starbucks and all of that. So it figured out that maybe this is the right place for you to survive because there's no chain dominance and the medium investment tier. So depending on the demographic analysis and all. And it also gives you a strategic approach that you should target this audience, the concept should be this specific thing, and here's the risk that you should keep in mind. Like this, it basically gives you all of this and it gives you the final verdict out of it. Now, this is where, like I said, this is where the overall pipeline essentially stops. Sorry, this is where the code execution has given you the final thing. And then let me show you. This is the output that it has created from the gap analysis. Now, what happens next is essentially that it takes the output and then puts it across different output format, right? So final verdict has arrived. What you're seeing here is that the final verdict and the analysis is being converted into a JSON format so that it can then give you a couple of different output format, right? So let me show you the first one, which is this. This is an infographic it was able to produce based on, again, the whole analysis. So it has the key metrics, different zones, and it actually gives you the verdict across it. It tells you the top strength and key insights. So again, imagine that, you want to send this to your friend saying, hey, I did the analysis and here's the thing. Let me also show you the HTML. So, oops. Give me a minute, let me download that. So if I go to HTML and I open this, so this is the final HTML, which is, again, like I said, this is pretty much like a presentation, which is Gemini is generating. And if I come down, you will see that it actually took everything and then it put it in a format where you'll be able to very easily see this in a proper, executive format of presentation. So again, if I go through, you will see that it has key insights and next steps. It also covers the methodology and some summary of it. The last part, which is very interesting, at least my favorite part, and let me play this.
Welcome to this Location Intelligence Report. Today, we're analyzing a compelling business opportunity, opening a new coffee shop in the vibrant heart of Indiranagar, Bangalore. Our analysis digs deep into market trends, competitor density, and consumer behavior to provide a clear, data-driven path to success in this dynamic neighborhood. The market research confirms that Indiranagar is one of Bangalore's most exciting yet challenging.
So as you can see that what we did was we also produced a small 2 or 3 minutes overview of the whole thing and what it does. And again, why are we doing three? Why can't we do one? It's completely our choice, right? So just to show you that you can actually have these different kinds of outputs. So that's pretty much the whole pipeline where it sort of goes through. And again, you don't have to only use, let's say, Indian location and all. In fact, if I go back, to this, let me actually show you a couple of more queries. So if I come down, I can actually take, let's say I'm going to take Sydney. So it doesn't matter what location that you give. And just to show you how sessions are persistent, I'm going to open this up, put this up. Sorry. Let's copy this and so just to show you that, this is how it sort of works. This will take some time and there you go. So you can see that it'll start going, it'll first start to understand what's the intake agent and what's the other agent. It's now going to do the transfer and so on and so forth. So everything sort of happens exactly the way we saw. And it'll keep on going. It'll take some time. So this is not very quick. It's not like 5 seconds and you get the whole thing. This will do its own analysis and all of those things, right? So I'm going to end the session and I'm going to show you something very interesting, which is a bigger aspect of, where is it? So that's the overall architecture of the whole thing that you just saw from the whole agent pipeline that we were discussing to different kinds of artifact, the different tools that it is using. This whole application you can also deploy on Cloud Run. So whatever you're seeing on localhost, you can actually deploy this on Vertex AI. You can deploy this on Cloud Run. It has internal unit test, integration test, and eval set. So a lot of time people ask that, hey, how do you know agents are doing what they were supposed to do? So there's an eval set that is there. You can actually use that, right? One thing which I'm not showing you today is that it also has an integration with AGUI. So again, for those of you who know what AGUI is, you would know what this is, but it basically means that there's also a very fancy UI that you can actually integrate it. So when you are doing this local installation, follow again the installation steps and you'll be able to do exactly what I showed you in the ADK web using the AGUI front end as well, which will give you like the one that you're seeing here, right? Now with that, I'm going to stop. Like I said, we are already beyond the time. I'm going to now go ahead and address questions. So now if you have any questions or anything, feel free to put it on the chat or raise your hand. I can address them. So Craig, suggest a topic at some point, asynchronicity. You could maybe just point to some discussion paper. Okay, Craig, in fact, I'm going to take your question. The first question that you asked. Let me see. Okay, so the first question that you asked is putting ADK in the context of open code, anti-gravity, Vertex AI. Craig, would you be comfortable coming on the mic and let's have a discussion quickly around it with all your questions? Because I see you have a couple of questions, so if that's comfortable with you. Okay, Siddhi, can you give access to Craig?
Yeah, just a second.
You have the access, Craig?
Lavi, I'm not sure if I have to unmute Craig. It will also unmute for all the attendees. So I'm not sure. I'm not supposed to do that.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so let me go through the questions on the chat itself. Um, are you able to unmute, Craig, or no?
No, I don't have an independent option to unmute Craig.
Oh, so everybody will get out.
Yes,
Is it
yes.
fine, Chitti, if you open that up because the session is over, so they'll be comfortable and I'm sure they'll not
Yeah,
do
better we
anything.
can do that once we are done with the session. Craig can remain in a panel and
Okay.
we guys can carry on with the Craig question.
Okay, Craig, is it okay for you to maybe stay 5 more minutes, 5 to 10 minutes? I'm here, but I'll take another question and then we'll do that. Okay, so Steph has a question. Can this be used for web scraping example applying to jobs? Not ADK per se, but there is a browser agents and all that you can actually use to do that. I don't know how ethical that is, but 100%. So there are browser agents, not in ADK, but outside of ADK. There's a very famous one called as browser use, which you can actually use and train it as well. There's also a Google project called Project Marina, which is essentially for this thing where you can train it to sort of do the applying of the job and everything. Ankit's question. Ankit's okay. Is it also possible to break the agent flow? Example, if I don't like a certain search query in between and retrigger. Oh, perfect. Yes. So Ankit, what happens with ADK is that there's also a component called as human in the loop, right? So what you can do is not in between. So once you have written a structure, which is the structure that we were playing with, you don't have control of stopping it in between unless you of course kill the server or something. It'll go till the end unless it fails on itself. But if you are like, no, 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 I want that my architecture should have human in the loop across different points, you can very easily add those layers as well. So it's as simple as saying that, okay, after 2 steps, or let's say after every step you want to add human review, you have a way to do that, and you can stop the execution and wait for the user to give back whatever feedback, answer, or you can define that custom flow. So that will be possible in that case. G Jaya Surya, can we limit the searches to a particular site? Yes, you can sort of add specific white sites and sort of mention that, don't go and do these sites. I was going to ask you the same thing. Agents are on the changes in task breakdown. Markdown files in the ADK with the crew where the agents are YAML. Yes. So another thing I want to cover is the YAML part, right? So if you actually go to documentation, especially if you start with Python, let me see if they have that example or not. So you do have YAML reference. So you can actually define the whole thing. So you don't have to do any Python code. You can actually define, oops, sorry, this one. So if I come here, do you see this example? I'll share the link also, but you can actually define your agent just by YAML as well. So just like you would have written a Python code to define an agent with name, model, description, instruction, you can define this as a YAML as well. I'll share this link, Andy, and this will be helpful for you. Okay. Any other questions? Do we have extra fee for using built-in tools like Google Search? No, it's part of your. So if you sign up for Google AI and you are in the free tier, you do not have to pay anything extra. But there are quota limits associated with this. If you do not want quota limits and if you want higher limits and all, you would then have to move to cloud, or do a paying tier in the Google AI and all of that. So the free tier doesn't require you to pay money, but then there are quota issues. But it's good enough. Like unless you're building a like a business around it, just to test and all, that should be fine. All right. Any other question which I missed? So Andy had another question, which is I asked because I've had coded to use my crew AI framework trip plan. I have to supply OpenAI. Sure, if I'm okay to use open source. No, absolutely. So in fact, I'll share the link of that as well. If you go here, so you do have Olama integration, you do have Light LLM integration. So you have these two integrations, Andy, and it's very easy to do those. You should be able to use pretty much any LLM at this point, including OpenAI Chat GPT or GPT OSS or any of those things. So you should be able to do that. In the agent installation, can you explain the role of before agent and after agent? Perfect. So Lauren, the thing is, again, we didn't talk about this because like I said, there's a lot of ADK things, but before agent, after agents are called as callbacks. What are callbacks? Callbacks are essentially, think of them as a part where before the agent or before the model or before the tool, you have a certain behavior that you want to inject. So if you see this diagram very clearly, you have three kinds of controlling the behavior of these three things, right? Agents, models, and tools. So if you want something to happen before the agent or after the agent, let's take a very simple example of logging, right? You're like, hey, I want to log everything before the agent. So all the inputs, everything that happened. And after the agent has done processing, I want to again log everything. So you would use something like a callback to do that logging. Same thing with model. So if you want before model, after model, you can again do. So before model, maybe your goal is to redact information, right? You're like, don't pass if somebody says whatever, Google, for example, right? So you will then write a function which is before model callback, and you will define that, hey, please don't send Google into the input to model. And the same thing with the after model, which is if you're like, please redact all of these different words from the output of the model. So this is where callbacks are greatly useful in that sense. Any other question that I missed overall? Oh, I missed one. AG, any idea about the price at each stage? What burn most cash? For instance, with Claude CLI, you had a lot of wasteful injection of text in each query. That's a very good question. I think it is whenever you do use tools, be it Google Search, Place API, or code execution, you're essentially sending a lot of tokens. But it's not as much, right? Because again, if you see the Gemini pricing in terms of 1 million tokens, you're priced at that, right? So um, whenever you use tools and also the reasoning over it, that's where you will see a lot of increase in price or increase in processing of the tokens, as simple as that. So how do you optimize that? By switching the model. So for example, I am actually using Pro model, I think, if I'm not wrong. So if I go to, let's say, market research, I'm actually using fast model, right? So fast model is my Gemini Flash model. Gemini Flash model is very fast and also very cheap compared to the Pro model. So the way you control this is by switching the model, and then the third option is to switch it to an open source model where there is no upfront cost and your infra sort of takes care of that. So that's one way of handling it. All right, I think I have addressed all the question. Anything else that you guys have a question on? Feel free to put it on the chat.
And also we can wait for a couple of more minutes so people can reach you out, Lavi, for questions, and then we need to wrap up the session. It's already past time. So let's just wait for folks couple of more minutes. If any folks have any questions, feel free to reach out, Lavi. And then we're gonna wrap up the session. Thank you.
Will you be unmuting the call now or
No, so once we are done, once we wrap up the session, so what I wanted to do is, Craig, you can remain in the waiting list, and I will unmute. And yeah, I will unmute you once everyone leave the call. Thank you. Lavi, you got a question from Laurent.
Practically, is there a way to use the state to inject context rather than using the prompt to an agent? Yes. Again, very good question. So let me actually show you. So you see this part of the code. So this is basically in the prompt, we are injecting the state, Lauren. So there is a very easy way, which is this, which is your states are accessible by curly braces. So whatever you save in the state can be accessed through state. So you don't have to always write complex prompts. The other, of course, is callbacks. Um, Correct. So callbacks are great for that purpose. So you can add context right away through the callbacks as well. Okay.
Okay, then if folks are doing good with the questions, then let's wrap up the session, Lavi. You fine with that? We still got a last question.
Follow up on the state. How can we get history from multiple sessions injected? So all your agent histories are available in the in the event state on the left hand side, if you want to see visually. And there's also trace. So this is where you can see all that is happening across your agent lifecycle. So you at least have a visual way to see all multiple different kinds of sessions which are there. But you do again, it's like you do have access to state, so you can just dump it in any persisted storage, and you will have a way to do that. All right, let's do our. Can you give access to Craig?
Yeah, sure. But I say folks are here, but yeah, that's fine. No worries. Craig, so I'm gonna unmute you. You can carry on with your question just a sec.
So am I on now?
You're audible, Craig. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, great. Anyway, yeah, my question was if there's asynchronicity, if there's any papers that you could point me to, that would be fine. It's too broad of a topic to really deal with here.
And async in the sense of agents, or
Well, I mean, it's a problem that I've run into in all the different tools that I mentioned, open code, Gemini, CLI, and Conductor, et cetera, but also even going back to Docker and to some of the attempts to create a virtual environment and to have a sequence of events happen in time. This is sort of the sub-agents problem. For me personally, what always happens is I'll ask Gemini, how do I solve a particular installation problem? This is sort of a simple case, and it'll give me an answer, and then the answer will turn out to be wrong, and it'll come back and it'll say, "Oh, sorry, something changed in the past 2 months." They changed the interface, but my analysis was based on earlier data. So being able to get that to be asynchronous, there's no way to do it really to get it to use current data.
Right. So I think the at least in the new Gemini and the AI Studio, you do have an option to switch on Google Search by default. So that actually gives you always the latest answer, and you can explicitly also mention that please give me latest of February 26th.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the same problem I get stuck with Gemini CLI, Cloud Code, and all of that. So I always have the habit of using them.
Okay. Well, anyway, thanks for the presentation. It's a good topic. And I was not aware of the ADK, the Agent Development Kit. There's so many different things going on at the same time. That's great.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I don't have any papers that I can share right away. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to share more pointers.
Okay. I'll do that. Thanks for the presentation and have a great day.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye-bye.
So Lavi, can you drop again your LinkedIn ID?